Follow along, Catholic Pilgrims, as we follow French Doctor of the Church, St. Francis de Sales, through his book, Introduction to the Devout Life. Tune in as we read through this practical guide for living out the Catholic faith well. Welcome, Catholic Pilgrims. Only 8 more readings to go. Growing up Protestant, I didn't grow up with saint stories, unless you count strictly those people found in the Bible. Even then, they weren't called saints. Mary wasn't called a saint. The apostles weren't called saints. Stephen, Timothy, or Paul. Nobody was called a saint. And this is just tragically sad. When I looked around the church that I grew up in, I saw very few people that lived out the Christian faith well, even myself. I hate saying that, but it's true. Of course, we are all sinners, but looking around, I didn't really see how the Christian faith was helping. Part of that is that Protestantism doesn't require a whole lot of self-reflection because once saved, always saved. Another part is that Christianity is not easy to live out well because of the constant battle with the flesh, the world, and the devil. Once, though, I became Catholic, it was like a whole world was open to me in reading about the saints. Here were men and women, and a lot of them, who did live out the Christian faith well, and their lives were impressive. St. Francis is going to talk to us about the examples of saints today in our reflection, so let's open to chapter 12 of the 5th part. Chapter 12, third reflection, the example of the saints. Consider the example of all the saints. What have they not done for the love of God and in order to be his devout servants? Think of those martyrs. How steadfast in their resolutions, what tortures they suffered in order to be faithful. Think, too, of those holy and blessed women, whiter than lilies in their purity, redder than roses in their charity, who, when 12, 15, 20, or 25 years old, underwent all manner of martyrdom, rather than renounce their resolutions, not only their profession of faith, but also their profession of devotion, some dying rather than sacrifice their virginity. Others, rather than abandon their ministries of love, tending the sick, comforting the mourners, and burying the dead. What marvelous constancy was displayed under such circumstances by this tender sex. Consider all those holy confessors, how utterly they despised the world, how invincible they were in their resolutions. Nothing could induce them to lay them aside. They embraced them without reserve and maintained them without faltering. Remember what St. Augustine tells us of his mother, Monica, with what firmness she kept to her resolution to serve God, first in her married life and afterwards in her widowhood. Recall how St. Jerome speaks of his beloved daughter Paula and her constancy amidst so many trials and adverse circumstances. What may not we do with such examples before our eyes? They were what we are. They performed their holy deeds in order to serve the same God and to attain the same graces. Why then may not we do the like, according to our circumstances and vocation, in behalf of our cherished resolution and solemn protestation? I mentioned a few episodes back that I recently read The Hiding Place by Corrie ten Boom. It is the true story of a Dutch Protestant family living in Holland during World War II under German occupation. Anyway, Corrie's life and her family members' lives are fascinating, inspiring, and full of action and adventure. I was so impressed with how well she and her family lived out their faith during extremely devastating circumstances. If I was the one with the authority to canonize people, I would surely say that they were saints in heaven, given how much they sacrificed and suffered to live out God's will of taking care of others. In all my time of being Protestant, 30 years, I never once heard her name, and I'm a prolific reader. If Corrie ten Boom and her family had been Catholic, their story would be very well known. But because Protestants don't venerate saints, a lot of people don't know their story. And this is such a shame. We need to see everyday men and women living out the faith well. I needed to see that growing up. St. Francis says, quote, "Consider the example of all the saints. What have they not done for the love of God and in order to be his devout servants? Think of those martyrs, how steadfast in their resolutions, what tortures they suffered in order to be faithful." Unquote. There are plenty of people that are lukewarm in their faith, and they are not inspiring. So we need the example of the saints to show us that, yes, holiness can be achieved with God's help. And when you strive for holiness, you are incredibly appealing as a person, and your story is uniquely fascinating. That is all for today, Catholic Pilgrims. Thank God that the Catholic Church recognizes the saints in heaven and encourages us to get to know our brothers and sisters that have gone before us. I'll see you back here soon to talk about Jesus' love. And until then, live the faith boldly and travel well.